Ready.
But I have this beautiful fireplace backdrop. I was able to like actually put up Anita's books.
I love
I'm
the books in
obsessed
the
with it.
background. Yeah, I was
Thank
I was really
you.
admiring that.
Wonderful
And I
gal.
like your artwork too. I can't see
Yeah.
it really close, but I
Yes,
really
All
like
like
it.
lesbian art. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it.
it's
I was
awesome.
looking in particular at the one like under Love and Other Words and
This one?
Love and Other Disasters. God damn it, I always do that. And Something Wild and
Pretty
Wonderful.
much the
I'm
same
sorry,
thing.
Anita.
No, you're
Yeah.
fine.
This is
Anyway,
by
the painting, I love it.
this is by
Yeah.
the artist Hallie Torres, who does
I thought I recognized the style. Sorry, I'm really excited.
who does the sapphic interpretations of Taylor Swift songs and this is
Yeah,
the interpretation of Ivy.
I thought
What?
it was. Okay, I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's
Wait,
very
what's the artist name?
Hallie Torres. It's like HALIETORRIS, I think. I have this one is also the painting for Dress, and then I've got one
Oh,
up here that's Cowboy Like Me. Now I hang from your lips like the gardens of Bethlehem.
That's awesome.
Immaculate.
okay,
So
that speaks to me. You have such good taste in like
thank you.
artwork, Taylor Swift songs, all of it.
Books, obviously.
Yeah.
Books, obviously.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I will read off my lovely little intro and then we'll get the party started. So hello and welcome to everyone. My name is Lainey Rose and I'm the event manager here at East City Bookshop, a woman-owned, community-focused indie bookstore located at the heart of Washington, D.C., just a few blocks away from the U.S. Capitol building and D.C.'s own national park, the National Mall. We are so excited to be with you all tonight, but before we get started, we have just a couple of housekeeping things. We will have time for your questions at the end, so if you have a question that you would like to ask, please put that in the Q&A box so that we can easily see them. We would love for you to put your enthusiasm in the general chat, so tell us where you're tuning in from. Tell us, have you ever been on a hike? We want to hear all of the dirty details. So keep all of your questions in the Q&A, enthusiasm in the chat. And if you're having any technical difficulties, please let us know in the chat as well. My colleague Emma is monitoring that and can help if necessary. And if you need to purchase a copy of any of the books mentioned tonight, you can shop on our website and we do ship anywhere in the country. I am so excited for tonight's event, not only because I love any excuse to listen to romance authors be in community with each other, but Anita Kelly's writing is something that I hold very dear to my heart, and Something Wild and Wonderful has once again knocked it out of the parks. Thank you. I'll be here all night.
I love it.
I read
That was a good one.
this book.
That
Thank
was
you.
really good.
I read an arc of this book what feels like forever ago, and it just completely struck me. It is beautiful and personal and moving in all the best ways that Anita Kelly can craft a love story. And I'm so glad that it is now out there in the world for everyone to fall in love with Ben and Alexi. Alexi's journey on the Pacific Crest Trail begins with a snake, and it is somewhat angling for the hot stranger who seems to have appeared out of thin air. Lex is prepared for rattlesnakes, blisters, and months of solitude, but what he isn't prepared for is Ben. But somehow, on a 2,500-mile trail, Alexei keeps running into the outgoing and charismatic hiker with golden brown eyes again and again. It might be a coincidence, but then again, there's a reason why the trail keeps bringing them together. Ben has had his fair share of bad decisions, and almost all of them have involved beautiful men. And yet there's something about the gorgeous and quietly nerdy Alexei that Ben just can't walk away from. Surely a bad decision can't be this cute and smart. And there are worse things than falling in love during the biggest adventure of your life. But when their plans for the future are turned upside down, Ben and Alexei begin to wonder if it's possible to hold on to something this wild and wonderful.
Aw.
Originally from a small town in the Poconos Mountains of Pennsylvania, our author of the evening is Anita Kelly, who now lives in the Pacific Northwest with their family. A teen librarian by day, they write romance that celebrates queer love in all of its infinite possibilities. Whenever not reading or writing, they're drinking too much tea, taking pictures, and dreaming of their next walk in the woods. They hope you pet a dog today. Joining them in conversation tonight is Jessica Joyce, who grew up a reader who loved to lose herself in books. She now lives happily ever ongoing with her husband and son in the Bay Area. When she's not writing character-driven, relatable tales of millennials who are just doing their best, you can find her listening to one of her dozens of chaotically curated Spotify playlists trying out new skincare face mask, crying over cute animal TikToks, or watching the 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice. Her debut, You with a View, releases in July, and you can pre-order from City Bookshop. Alicia Thompson is a writer, reader, and a Paramore superfan. As a teen, she appeared on an episode of 48 Hours in the audience of a local murder trial where she broke the fourth wall by looking directly into the camera. She lives in Florida with her husband and 2 children. Her debut, Love in the Time of Serial Killers, was a national indie bestseller, and her next novel, With Love from Cold World, releases in August, and you can pre-order from City Bookshop. And now I'm going to disappear for a while and let these lovely authors take it away, so have fun.
Thanks, Lady Rose. That was amazing.
Yeah. An intro.
Thank you everyone for being here. I have to
Yeah.
say my voice has somewhat disappeared today, so I have my tea, so I'm going to do my best. But you should
I'm so
definitely
excited to see where everybody is from. Everybody was
I
popping
know,
up with
I'm like,
their
look
yeah.
at this international crew we have here.
so many people from all over the place.
I love
Lots
it.
of East Coasters, as always.
Yeah.
I know. My dream is to get back east one day for in-person events. So one day, we'll see.
Love it.
Yes.
Oh, we got a Bay Area person.
Well, Anita, you've been doing a lot of traveling lately because you did a whole kind of tour down, Oregon into California. So just overall, how was that? What was your experience like?
It was so lovely. I mean, it felt very like self-indulgent to take my book on a little tour. But no, it was my first time doing like in-person events at all since the first book came out like in the midst of the pandemic. Not that the pandemic isn't still ongoing, but yeah, and it was really special getting to visit both of the romance bookstores that are in Southern California, Meet Cute and Rip Bodice, because I had never been to them or to a romance bookstore. And like both of them, it just felt like walking into a room full of friends. Like it was just so wonderful. And they both support, like traditional romance and a lot of indie romance too. And, I like to read both indie and traditional romance. And so, yeah, it was just like my world, like, in a shop. And it was and they were both very welcoming and wonderful. I say wonderful a lot, but I only realized after I wrote this book, because this book wasn't the original title. And then after, actually the head of my publishing imprint kind of came up with the title, and afterwards when I was doing my past pages, I was like, I say wild and wonderful so many fucking times in this book.
So
Well,
no
now it just
wonder.
seems thematic.
Yeah, so
Totally.
I didn't really realize until the title really pointed it out to me. I was like,
Wait, so I want to know
Kelly.
what was the original title, though, if you can say.
Yeah.
The original title was Desire Lines, which is it's a reference to something in the book. And then for a while it was The Trail to You, and then it was this. At some point, someone else takes over and titles it.
Yes.
Which is wonderful. Just do that.
I'm wondering though, do you still think of it as any of the past titles, or is it now you can't even imagine it being anything other than something wild and wonderful?
Yeah, I feel like once it's gone through the publication process, it becomes that title to me. Yeah, and sometimes I forget what past titles were. I know for 11 Other Disasters, that took a huge journey to get there. And the original title was Ugly and Delicious Things. And they were like, you can't have ugly in the title of a rom-com. And I was like, why not?
I get it.
I think we should be able to reclaim the word ugly though.
Yeah.
Me too.
Be ugly. But anyway, no, yeah, the little tour through California where I visited spots from this book was very special. It was kind of funny because all the places we went, like I didn't want to advertise what I was doing. Like we ate at Tommy's Kitchen, which is like one of the first real scenes in the book where Alexi and Ben meet. And my wife and my friend that were with me kept being like, you should tell them that you wrote a book where their restaurant is. And I was like, no way.
No,
My nightmare.
not happening.
Yeah. So
I get it.
Yeah, it's awkward. I totally understand. But they probably would be excited though. I mean, it's pretty cool.
I think they would.
Like I wanted to hike the trail where Ben and Alexi first really start hiking together after they meet at Tommy's Kitchen. But that trailhead was under 3 feet of snow, so I could not do that. And yeah, I just want to think about all the people in the California mountains who are still like suffering from, all the wild snow and flooding.
Yeah.
And it was pretty intense just when I was there. And I feel like we were there at a pretty lucky time that we were able to get around and stuff. But I did learn, even though we weren't able to really hike at the trailhead, like where we stayed was near where the trailhead would have been. And so anyway, it was like, it must have been a bitch of a time to walk from Tommy's Kitchen to that trailhead. It's just like all uphill for like 2 miles. I'm like, no wonder these two people were bonded by the time they walked.
Seriously, trauma bonded.
Yeah, so
I love it. I mean,
it was funny seeing that in retrospect, but anyway, it was a great time.
it is funny. I think about this a lot, like when I'm in a real place that I've put into my work, like that convergence of actual real life and like something that you made up where you can sort of imagine it actually happening it's very cool, but it's also like it feels a little vulnerable to bring people into that space, be like, hey, I wrote a book and this part was in it. Like there's something about it that feels, I don't know, like you're getting naked a little bit, when you say stuff like that to other people.
Yeah, it almost feels like I had a dream and you were in it. Like it kind of almost feels like saying that same thing. Yeah, I went to the Florida winter park that I based like Cold World off of that I hadn't gone to until after I wrote the book. And I had a similar thing where I was standing in this like giant igloo place with like fake snow. And I was like, I dreamed this, like I made this, but like I didn't make it. I read it in a newspaper article and then I, like just copied it. But it was,
but you did dream it too.
You. Yeah.
It is. It's funny.
And our trip, it was very hectic. Like we were driving all around Southern California. We were like exhausted by the end of it because my 6-year-old was also with us. It was like a whole adventure. And at the end, I was just like, to my best friend and my wife that came with me, I'm like, thanks for doing all this in honor of some people I just made up. Like it was just like, when I sat down and thought about it, like it was such a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, Jessica, I am hoping to, when the weather gets better, revisit some parts of the trail up here in the Northwest that I mentioned in the book, and that I'd really like to do alone. Because it is vulnerable to discuss your work in person. It feels so strange. So, but yeah, like I want to go to some pivotal spots that I mentioned, like just me. Because kind of reflect on it.
And you had hiking. Go ahead, Alicia.
No, you go ahead.
I feel like this is gonna happen because we're all like, I just have so many things to say that I'm like, oh my God, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, okay. No, I forgot. Go, Alicia. I'm sorry, I forgot.
I was just saying that
while you're talking.
I was just gonna say, Anita, that you had hiked portions of the PCT before. And so I was just kind of curious, like, some of the stuff you put from that experience, directly into the book.
Yeah, so I have hiked about 200 miles of the PCT, which is a lot of miles to hike, but not in comparison to like the whole trail. So a lot of the experiences that they go through are kind of directly from my own experiences. But it's just the details of the setting are the things I had to research since I didn't, travel the entire trail. So I really needed to make sure that, I had the trail descriptions accurate for the parts that I haven't traveled myself. But the general like misery of like backpacking and like all the like hard parts were straight from my heart.
It comes through. I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean that in the best way. It
I can
comes
feel
through.
it.
I felt like I was on the trail for sure.
Yeah, no, like the parts that I hiked were probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And bless Cliff, my hiking partner that came with me, because he was the perfect hiking partner. He is like the calmest, most patient man I've ever known. And we have a lot of things in common. Like I think we were good hiking partners because of that. But it is it's a very intimate experience hiking with someone because you are, first of all, with the other person 24/7, like you can't escape them. And so you have to figure out how to communicate and, work together. And anyway, I remember there were like lots of moments where if it was just me, like I would have just wanted to die because like I've just never been so exhausted.
Let me lay down here and let nature take its course.
Yeah, like I've never pushed my body that much. Like there were so many moments where I was like, I cannot take another step actually. And Cliff would be like, well, we have to. And he would just keep walking. I'd be like, God damn it.
Damn it, Cliff.
Yeah.
How long? So if you did 200 miles, like how long does that take?
So the first time that we went out, we did about 150 miles, and that took about a week and a half. And then we went back the next summer for like another 50, and that took. And so the first time we kind of we did walk too much. Like we strived for like 16 to 17 miles a day, and it was a little like too hard to walk that much. And so the second time we slowed down a little bit to like 11 or 12 miles a day, which I still wanted to die. I thought it would
Oh my God.
But anyway, so the 50 miles took like 5 to 6 days. But it is like it's different from just going on a day hike because you're in these areas where you have no cell reception, like you're really like truly cut off. And but then you also get to wilderness that's so amazing that you can't get to. So anyway, shout out to Cliff for keeping me alive.
Thanks, Cliff.
Yeah, he's the best.
It's funny because you're like, Alicia, you're like, okay, so how long did it take to hike 200 miles? And in my head, I'm like 2 months. I was like automatically.
No, seriously, no, that's what I would have said. That's honestly that's what I would have said. I was like 6 months, a year, like was this a Forrest Gump situation? Like that's what I was thinking.
Talking like a mile a day.
Right. I hike 0.7 to get to like a gas station. I'm like, that's enough. That's
too far. Too far.
The biggest hiking day we ever did was probably like 18 or 19 miles. And it was because we were within a national park boundary and we hadn't there's like so many rules. But anyway, if you're in a national park, you have to have a camping permit, and we hadn't gotten a camping permit, and we don't break rules. Like me, like I'm sure a lot of people just like camp anyway, who cares? But me and Cliff were like, we didn't get a permit. We have to keep walking. And so we just like walked until we hit like the national park boundary, because you'll see a big sign, like even on a trail. It'll be like, you're leaving Crater Lake National Park. And so we just like collapsed on like the other side of the boundary. But
I just can't even imagine that length and like and how your body feels, even just like how your feet feel after you've walked that length of time. Like,
yeah,
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, like getting on and off my shoes was very painful because your feet swell. Like they actually tell you to buy hiking boots, bigger than your actual. This is getting so boring. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm fascinated.
But that you have to buy boots that are bigger than your actual size, because when you're hiking that much, your feet will like swell. Because your body shouldn't be doing this. But yeah.
Yeah, somebody in the chat says they would leave their shoes on 24/7.
Yeah, like never take them off.
Yeah,
I agree.
I almost did. But like the relief of getting to take off your shoes and put on like flip-flops at the end of the day was the best thing.
That's
Yes.
nice.
I loved in the book, I don't think this is like a spoiler because I mean you can kind of figure it happens, but I love any moment in the book when they stop and they like get to stay at a hotel for a day or something. Like
Yes.
you can
0
just
day.
feel, yeah, you can feel through the book like just the relief and like what it
Mhm.
must feel like,
Yeah.
and but also how weird it feels, you know, to like be in this
Mhm.
like just regular bed all of a sudden.
Yes.
Back in
Yeah.
civilization.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember when we finished that 150-mile stretch, we had already kind of planned to meet our wives at this spot that was supposed to be halfway through our actual hike, but then I got injured. So we ended up just going home after that. But yes, it was at this like little kind of backcountry resort that had like, you know, cabins where you could stay and stuff. And so when we got there, I just remember taking a shower. It was like the most amazing.
Oh my gosh.
thing.
Yeah, it's like the best shower you've
Nice.
ever taken.
Yes, or
Seriously.
even just washing your hands, because like you can only really wash your hands in like ice cold streams. Like anyway, it's not, yeah. So if you're lucky enough to find an ice cold stream, which you aren't always. Anyway, hiking, why do we do it? I don't know.
I don't know.
And yet you're like,
'Cause it's
and yet you're like,
free.
get me back out there.
No, I do. I was saying to someone that I feel like writing this book was me kind of like inserting myself into like a fantasy, because
Mhm.
even though it is the worst, like I still always want to go back. You know, like I want to go
Mhm.
back and
Yeah.
have more of it. I don't know what that says about me, but
No, I think though that that's like, to me, that's one of the best things about like books and romance in particular is like a road trip romance, right? Like you don't have to have
Mm.
all the annoying parts of the road trip where actually it's just you're sitting in a car and it's kind of boring and you're just
Yeah.
kind of achy from sitting there for a long time, and then you're bickering because one of you wants to stop for this and the other one doesn't. Like it just gets to be sexy and fun. So, you know, I'm all about it.
Yeah. And I also like, and Anita, this is going to be one question I asked you. Like, I like how, like, obviously hiking you know, the PCT was impactful for you, you know, in that like you took your experience and turned it into, you know, a piece of art that now people are getting to read and love, and like just seeing the feedback from everyone, like how connected they feel to this book. You can, like, as I was reading, I felt like I was there with them. It was a very visceral feeling, I think, Alicia, like you said, and it was very obvious that like you definitely put some of yourself, whether it was your own experiences or just your own feelings about being on the trail or whatever. Like it was very obvious that you put yourself, you know, part of yourself into that. So my question is like, how did you come to decide that you wanted to write this story at this time with these characters?
Yeah, so really, I am just not that creative, and I can only write about
I
things
dispute that.
that
I
I
dispute
know.
that.
Yeah, so basically, you know, the first book was about food because I really like to eat, and then I was like, what
Same.
else have I done in my life? Well, I've hiked, I've walked. So, yeah, no, I always knew that I would write a PCT book after getting off the trail. And just like nature in general has always been important to me. Like I was, you know, like a teenage nerd reading John Muir's journals and like, you know, nonfiction about the environment and stuff. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I knew that I would write a nature book somehow, and this ended up being it. But I really can't remember like how the genesis happened of, you know, combining the PCT with the characters that I created.
Mhm.
But yeah, the characters were really inspired by like young people that I've known who, yeah, have been involved in like very strict religions. And I didn't want to like, you know, pinpoint this book on one specific religion. I mean, I did want it to be Christianity because that's the one I'm most familiar
Mhm.
with. But, you know, I've met students and people that I work with in my day job who have these really intense home lives where, yeah, basically there's nothing in their life but their church and their family.
Right.
It just seems like a very duty bound life, and I always worry about them and what's going to happen to them, you know, if they turn out to not be someone that their church or their family expects them to be. So that's kind of where Alexi came from. And yeah, just this need to like process trauma through like a quiet, intense journey, like hiking the PCT. It's just something that has always appealed to me and my sensibilities. So yeah, that was kind of where the story came from.
Yeah, I do feel like healing, like the connection between nature and healing is such a huge theme in this book, especially with Alexi. Like he's obviously processing through, I think, the trauma of, his family's response to him being gay, and and what his life looks like now without them and stuff like that. Or like, so that's a main theme. Are there any other themes that came through for you as you were writing? Anything you were sort of surprised about that came through as you were writing?
Yeah. Like the theme of healing is definitely one, and nature in general. I think what ended up becoming a theme that I didn't really have in mind when I started writing was like the idea of home, which is always something, which is always a theme that I've been drawn to and end up writing about somehow. Because so first, I was just writing about Alexi on the trail, and then I was like, okay, well, Alexi needs like a goal somehow, other than just hiking the trail.
Right.
Like how does he really want to change? And so that was where I came up with kind of this, this list that he makes of places that he could possibly move because he feels like he's no longer welcome in the place that he feels has always been home to him. And there's various parts in the book where he's like, maybe my home can be here, maybe my home can be here, actually maybe it's only in the woods, like maybe that's the only place I belong. And then I don't want to give away the ending, but like kind of coming to the conclusion he comes to, like wasn't there from the beginning, like that wasn't necessarily the way I planned it, but as I was writing it, like it was what felt right for him of where he ends up at the end. So yeah. Those are the main
I think it's funny how it works out like that too, like where you're, I think especially when you're working on a contracted book and like you have to turn in materials beforehand where you're like, this is what's going to happen. And then as you're writing, the characters sort of take on lives of their own and make, like, obviously at the end of the day, you're the puppet master, but I do feel like, well, allegedly, I mean, I might dispute that too.
Well, one thing with the process, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I think it's so interesting how like that, like over time, what you plan for in the beginning is not what the character needs at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on that topic, I know that you had said in another interview something about your first draft of this book was strictly Alexi's point of view, and then you added Ben's. And so I was just wondering if you could talk more about that, like why you made that decision and what ways you felt that opened up the book to have Ben's perspective. I love that you have Ben's perspective. I think it's great.
Yeah. And now I can't really imagine, not having Ben's perspective, but yes, the first draft was just Alexi being sad for a long time.
Connect with that.
Yeah, we love that.
And actually, Jessica, so you're talking about writing on contract. So actually, I wrote the first draft of this book like before I had a book deal or an agent, and I'm actually really grateful I did, because so like working on the third book that I just turned in, it was hard. It was hard writing on contract. Starting. But yeah, I'm like kind of feeling that expectation of like what my editor wants and like what the reader wants. And so it was nice to write this one without that expectation. But anyway, so my editor called me when she was reading the first draft and was just like, so this is too heavy. Like I love Alexi, but like it's way too internal. It's anyway, so her solution was bringing in Ben's point of view, really to kind of like lighten Alexi's load. which makes total sense. And looking back, like, yeah, it just made the book so much better to do that, because it does lighten the narrative. And so doing that though was difficult. Like there were some chapters where it was obvious, like, so I had never done an edit like that, like adding in a new point of view. In my head, I'm like, oh, it's easy. Like, I've already been 100K of, Ben being a love interest. Like I know him.
Right.
And then I went to actually write him. I'm like, oh, I don't really know him. And I started to decide, like, which chapters would be, like, there were some chapters I didn't want to let go, from Alexis, because like it was important for me to get his thoughts, and what was happening. And then other instances I was like, oh, well, this is easy to insert Ben here. And anyway, so it was really, and then like all the edits after that were really kind of focusing on Ben, because when I turned in that first draft after that, she's like, so it kind of feels like you just dropped Ben in, which I told you to do. So I know that, like, but anyway, so a lot of it was like making sure Ben had his own goals, and then and then after that I threw like everything at Ben. Then Ben had like a like
he had a lot going on.
But no, so so now I really love the way it is. And actually when I look back, one of the ways that now I can't imagine it, any other way is there's a portion of the book where there are letters written back and forth, which people tend to cry the most at that part, which I understand. But so
yes, it's me, I'm people.
Yeah. But so in the first point of view, you only see Alexi's letters, because a lot of the letters aren't sent, so you didn't get to see the letters that Ben didn't send until I put in his point of view. And so when I got to revising with the dual point of view, and I got to that part, I was like, oh, I can write Ben's letters that he didn't send. And then like I really got to develop, what was happening with Ben at that point of time in his life. And so that was really sad. That was like, another, key fitting into the lock. I feel like with the revision of this book, like, I don't know, like the revising process of this book was just, I think, one of the most satisfying creative things I've ever done. Even like looking back, it's kind of funny because the plot, like well, however much plot there is in this book, but the things that happen in this book, like, the rattlesnake, the coyotes, the hotel, whatever, it's all the same from the first draft. Like all the stuff that happens in this book is pretty much the exact same as the first draft, but each revision was like digging into the characters in a different way, or like digging into the why, like these things happen and why they mattered, which is like my sweet spot. I just want to think about characters and why they do the things, why they matter. One of the very last revisions and like one of the last like aha moments I had was in the epilogue. I don't think this is a big spoiler because there's birds all throughout the book, but in the epilogue, Alexis is about to go see some birds, which he is, like I said, throughout. And I remember when I had that idea to enter the birds at all, I was really excited because there's this big bird show in Portland every fall. It's like the weirdest thing. When I first moved here, sorry, I'm like flailing my hands a lot, I'm realizing.
I love it.
When I first moved here like a long time ago, I read in the paper that there was going to be this like, bird event where all these birds fly by. And it said that hundreds of people come to sit and watch the birds. And I was like, that can't be right. And then hundreds of people show up just to sit on this hill and watch some birds. And then they all clap when the birds go away. I can't.
Oh my gosh.
That sounds so precious, honestly.
I love that.
And so it's all these like tiny little birds that are flying into this chimney. And they do fly into it in a very cool way. Sorry about my dog. But
okay.
But anyways, they're really tiny. And so there's thousands of them during this one point in their migration that passed over Portland. But anyway, so sometimes like a hawk comes through and tries to like eat some of the birds. And whenever, whenever the hawk comes in, the whole crowd is like, then they boo the hawk, and then they cheer when the hawk goes away.
Oh my God.
Anyway, it is just like legit, like the nerdiest thing I've ever
I
experienced.
love it.
And
It's like nerd sports.
Yeah, it really is. And so anyway, so I had the idea that I could like use this in the epilogue. I'm like, oh, this is perfect because it's birds and it's Portland and like whatever. And then it wasn't until like, I think the last revision that I was like, but wait, why are the birds important? And it was only then that I was able to really like articulate, like in words, that, you know, the birds were important because they were a memory that Alexei had always had that he could keep, you know, and that he could keep with him, you know, through his future life as well. And, but it wasn't until like, yeah, the very last, after a million like drafts that I could actually write that out. And it was so satisfying to like click in my head. But anyways, I feel like every draft and every piece of feedback, because a lot of people contributed to this book, like in various ways, in like an early feedback. And so every revision like kind of clicked something else into place for me. And yeah, it was just really satisfying. And I appreciate all the people that, yeah, that helped me in early drafts of this book.
Yeah.
It is amazing, like what a group effort it is to actually get a book out in the world. And like, I mean, when I was strictly a reader, you know, especially like in my teenage years, like I would just go grab a book and I'd be like, somebody wrote it. That's like, I didn't really think too hard about it. And I think until you start constructing, like as a writer, you start constructing stories, especially character driven stories, which Anita, you do so well. Like just the amount of work that goes into it, like you're not going to sit down and bang out a perfect first draft. And I'm saying this to myself as much as to anyone else, but like, but it's so cool to hear, I think other writers, process and experience and seeing like we get to see the final product, but you have been like in the weeds with it and seeing the things or hearing about the things that you added over time and in revisions is so special, because like that last 25% of your book, like I was so deeply in my feelings, like rocking in a corner.
And it's such a gift when you really think about it, that you have, like in your case, Anita, like your editor who just spent so much time, like what an act of love to spend so much time with a book and really helping you to kind of shape it to what it ended up being. It's really, I don't know, it's really special. I think we're moving into the audience question phase.
I don't know how that happened. Like we didn't even get to talk about music.
I know. We barely touched the surface. I literally have all these questions written down that we didn't even get to, but that's because we were just too busy, you know, chatting about all the beautiful things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I rambled a lot.
Amazing is what you all were being. We do have some questions up in here. I have some questions of my own if we have time for them. And so a reminder to our lovely audience members that you can put your questions in the Q&A feature. We'll start off with, let me see. If you can share, Anita, where's your next book set, or where would you like to set a book one day? And just a couple of questions of, can you tell us anything about book 3?
Ooh.
Yeah, no one ever tells me I can't. So I feel like
fans permission
have boundaries and rules about what they can say, but no one's ever told me I can't. So anyway, Lainey Rose, the next book is completely in Nashville.
Yay!
So I'm I'm hoping actually to get out to Nashville for the launch of that one. We'll see. But so the next book is Julie's book. It's called How You Get the Girl. And
love it. Lainey Rose.
For me,
like the Taylor Swift song.
Seriously.
Which
it's perfect.
Yeah, which there was a slight back and forth between me and my editor where she wanted to tweak it just a little bit. And I was like, well, we kind of have to keep it the Taylor Swift song because lesbians really love Taylor Swift. The most lesbian book I've ever written. Book number 3.
I love it.
I'm glad that your advocacy came through.
And
that's important.
She was like, oh yeah, whatever. Like anyway. But yeah, so I would call book 3 a sports adjacent book. It kind of has to do with basketball.
Interested?
Yeah, so I feel like there's, like the hockey romance people and the baseball romance people, and I love all those books, but I am petitioning for like college basketball lesbians to hopefully read
I
my
love
book.
it.
Hell yeah, I'm all about it.
Let's make it
Very
happen.
good. So yeah, so I just turned in the draft of that one. So again, I have no idea how much it will change. But it's much, I would say, lighter in tone than this one. It's more like an actual rom-com, like I'm supposed to be writing. At the same time that it has lots of depressing things in it, because that's what I do. But I had a lot of fun writing this one. Like there were scenes that made me laugh out loud because Julie makes me laugh a lot because she's very, anyway, hopefully it'll make you laugh when you read it and you get to know Julie a little bit better. But there's
love it.
also, I will say, unless this changes a lot, so the third book is kind of like the end of this series. And so I do kind of wrap up a lot of different things because I can, and I have all these characters now that I want to still play with. So there's lots of London and lots of Ben currently in book 3.
Yay.
Because they're both very important to Julie. And so even though Julie's kind of hurt that they like now have their own people and they don't need her as much, but
Relatable.
yeah, so that is book 3.
Amazing.
I can't wait.
I'm so excited. Being a Nashville lesbian, I'm so excited.
Yeah,
It's like,
no,
it was
it's
written for
like your
you.
dream book, your
Right,
absolute dream
truly.
book.
Okay, so another question is, assuming we can't get to this trail, which does sound lovely, is there an alternate reading location or vibe that you would recommend for sitting down to read this one?
Hmm.
That's a good
Ooh.
question.
I mean, honestly, anywhere that you want to just take a walk, it could be a city park or anywhere, or taking a break from reading this book and going out and taking a walk. I've had actually several people tell me that it inspired them to take a walk. And I feel like that's a really good compliment. I'm like,
I love that.
Yeah.
like you did something for your mental health because of this book, and I'm glad.
I love the pictures that your book gets tagged in on Instagram, because a
too.
lot of them have so much like nature stuff and just, I don't know, it's just so great. Or little things from the book, little, Easter eggs of like the gummy bears or something. It's so cute.
Yeah, like a reader just took this book to the Bridge of the Gods, which is
I saw that.
and that like really touched me because I'm like, they took like my little book and they went on a road trip with it to see this bridge, and like I don't know, it was so, yeah, it was really, really nice.
I love that.
It's like kind of amazing sometimes to like, I mean, readers are amazing simply for reading your book, but like to see the effort that people go to like to connect with the author and the book and like the special things that they do either on social media or through DMs or whatever. Like it's so cool to see the connection between, reader, author, book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Readers like Bookstagram and like Book Talk and stuff, they do the most. It's amazing.
They go
Yeah.
off. Yeah, it's amazing.
So another question we have comes from, I love this, Dobbs the dog. I love that Lex is a birder, as I am also a birder. Anita, are you a birder?
So no, I'm not really. But yeah, so I like hearing from people that like think that the bird rep was good.
That's awesome.
Because like anything I put in, I just have to research that stuff. I know stuff now. No, but like looking back at like the research I did, it makes me laugh because I found this great site. I think it was on some like university website, like ornithology department or something. They had a list of all these birds, and they had this, and then you could like listen to their bird songs. And so like looking back, it makes me laugh. So I was just like sitting here at my desk, like listening to bird songs like over and over. She'd be like, well, that kind of sounds like that. And so maybe like, anyway, like an outsider would be like, what's wrong with this person? Just listening to bird songs all day.
I love that.
But
Well, one of the things I thought was so cute in the book was when Ben was starting to get better at recognizing birds, and he'd be like so
Yes.
proud of himself. Like he'd be like, I think it was this one, and it was so cute.
yeah,
It's such an act of love, like to be
Yeah,
interested
it really
in the
is.
things
Yeah.
that, I love that.
Absolutely.
Which, speaking of Ben, our next question, did you always intend to have Ben be in this book after you wrote the first book?
Sorry, dogs. Okay, because my family's getting back home. So I wrote these two books, not really knowing that they were going to be connected, until I got my book contract that said 3-book series. And I said, oh, okay, I'm writing a series. I really had no idea what I was doing when I got my book deal or an agent. I still don't really know what I'm doing completely, but
Same.
anyway, so yes, then I kind of like put Ben tangentially into the first book in edits, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to connect these somehow. Maybe Ben is friends with Julie back in Nashville. And so yeah, that there's like a little scene in Love and Other Disasters where Ben and Julie are together and London's on the phone talking to them. So like I'd always envisioned these two characters, but I only really connected them to the first book, in edits. But like I said, now that I'm writing the third book and I know that I'm writing a series, I can connect everything much better.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thing. What else do we have? Oh, this is a fun one. Can you share a favorite quote, moment, or feeling from the book? We want to know what's on the Something Wild and Wonderful T-shirt, which I think is so fun.
Oh gosh.
T-shirt. What would it be?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I love one of my favorite scenes is the scene where they're at the Mexican restaurant. Because I always like love the scene, that comes a little bit into a book where the characters really just like talk and get to connect really for the first time, and then sometimes have sex afterwards. But
Yes.
anyway, so
All that sugar on the rim.
that whole scene is like fun to me. Probably the line that I like personally remember the most, because it like hurt me when I wrote it. And every time I read it afterwards in revisions, it hurt me continually. But the line about your interpretation of God is a tragedy. I feel like that like hit me when I wrote it and continues to hit me.
It's a good line.
And of course, I love the scene where they're reading Alana, or Alexi is reading Alana to Ben. It's just it's so sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Which I can't tell you, I've had so many Tamora Pierce stands like just coming into my DM, so excited, and it makes me so happy. So thank
That's so cool.
you Tamora Pierce fans for your support.
I'm going to throw out one of my questions, which is for
Yeah.
Jessica and Alicia. How do you think your characters would do hiking on a trail?
Oh, well,
Alicia?
Jessica, do a little bit.
I mean, Jessica,
I
I was gonna
mean-
say your characters are already kind of on those mountains and stuff. They're already doing some Zion,
Yeah, they do.
trailblazing.
They do. I mean, they have Theo's granddad with them, so they generally do easy hikes, but there is one chapter where they're in Zion and Paula stays behind and they hike Angel's Landing, which is a very strenuous, dangerous hike. So I think they would hold their own. Like,
Oh yeah.
Like Theo has stamina, like that could transfer over to hiking trails, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as they don't fall over into spoiler. Can you both give like a quick intro to your upcoming books, because they're both so good?
Yes. I brought mine with me. I'm at a hotel, but I brought my book with me. a prop. Alicia, you go first because I have to think about it.
No. You just said it was a prop, and so obviously, go ahead. You've got your prop.
Okay. Here it is. This is the ARC, so ignore the ARC sticker. But so my book is about a millennial who is unemployed, who recently lost her grandmother. She and her grandmother were best friends, and she finds a stack of pictures and a letter in sort of among her grandmother's things after she passes away, and she discovers pictures of her grandma with this very handsome man, from when she was in her 20s, and then a letter that talks about a broken engagement. And so Noelle, who's the main character, is sort of struck by this because, her grandmother was married to her grandfather for, over 60 years and was the love of her life, etc. So she, wants to sort of discover her grandmother's last secret. And doesn't, can't really ask anyone in her family because she doesn't want them to know about it. So she goes to TikTok, she posts about it, hoping to find, this secret man. And the TikTok goes viral. And the mystery man's grandson comments on the TikTok and said, "That's my grandfather." And the mystery man's grandson ends up being her old high school rival. So, and it kind of unfolds from there. They end up on a road trip for reasons I don't want to, I don't even know if it's a spoiler, but I don't want to spoil it. And yeah, it's, it's a rivals to lovers road trip romance with just one pull out sofa bed, among other things. But those are the most important.
So good.
Roasting is sexual tension perfection.
It's so sexy.
Gotta do the roasting.
Yeah.
Gotta do the roasting.
Yeah.
Okay, Alicia, your pitch.
So my upcoming book is called With Love from Cold World, and it's about two people who work at a kind of like a fake winter attraction in Florida. And so it's, winter all year round at this place. And it's about two people who work there. Lauren, who's the bookkeeper, and she's like very kind of uptight and seems aloof and kind of very, in control. And then there's Asa, who's worked there for, ever. And it's just kind of this, everybody sees him almost like the class clown, where he's just always kind of joking and laughing and having a good time. And so they kind of end up competing against each other a little bit on trying to figure out a way to revitalize the place because it's not doing very well. Because in my mind, I just couldn't see how a place like that could stay open very long, but that's just me. So I basically was like, well, maybe it's not going to stay open very long if they don't get their act together. So they're kind of competing to come up with a better idea for how to revitalize the place. But then, of course, they end up working together and falling for each other. And spoiler alert, they end up falling in love. So, and to answer the earlier question, I don't really see them as being big hikers, mostly because I'll be honest, I don't know that I could ride a hiker. That's just me. I just don't even know. Like, I don't have it in me. I don't have the imagination. I don't know the first thing about it. But in my mind, I think Lauren would be very, very organized. She would have done all of her research. She would have everything she needed.
Yeah,
but she would over the course of the time have to kind of loosen up a bit and just have some fun and kind of realize like you can't control everything. And then Asa would, be a joke a minute and having fun and laughing and stuff. But at the end of the day, he actually is very good at caretaking and he's good in stressful situations. So I actually think he would make a great hiking partner. But yeah, I think that they would, I think they would do it for like maybe 4 days and then they'd go get that hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say, so I've read both of these books and they're both like two of my favorite books ever. And I think if you liked Something Wild and Wonderful, you would also like both of these books. Like even though they're all very different books, I can like, there's themes and things that are common, I think, in all of them. So pre-order them. They're so good.
Yes. And Emma dropped the links down to our website, so you can pre-order them there should you want to take a look on our website.
Cool.
We've got time for one more question, which is my favorite question to end for our authors is what are you currently reading? What do you want to gush about? What is upcoming that you would love to just gush about? Aside from all the books we've already talked about.
Yes, thank you. I actually really wanted to get to this. Can I go first?
Yes.
So we are currently in the middle of the trans rights readathon. So I have 3 books I want to mention real quick before we run out of time. One is Chef's Choice by TJ Alexander. I think TJ is here.
That's on my
I
list
saw
too.
TJ earlier. Yeah.
So that's another upcoming one that I was lucky enough to read already. It is the most joyous trans for trans book I have ever read. Like, I am obsessed with both main characters, like this short French king and this like amazing like yoga doing like woman. They're both amazing. And I just like it's just like full of joy. Like I said, I was amazed at just how fun it was. Like, I had so much fun reading that book. Anyway, so Chef's Choice, pre-order it for sure. The other ones I have here with me, I'm prepared.
Look at you.
So Ander and Santi were here.
Oh, yeah.
You've been talking about this one.
Yeah.
You've been talking about this one. So now it's on my list.
So I could talk about this book for the rest of my life. I have so much to say about it. But it is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It will break your heart, but it would also make you laugh. Like, Johnny's just so funny. And so like a lot of this book, the first half of this book, I was like actually laughing out loud and then preparing myself because I knew it was going to break my heart, which it did, but in a hopeful way. Anyway, it's a wonderful story with a very loved and accepted non-binary Latin main character, and wonderful. And then I just finished this one, which is another YA. So this one's YA, but both characters are 19 out of high school. I would consider it more maybe like new adult. This one's fully YA. Both characters are 16 in the middle of high school. But again, just a really joyous trans book. The main trans character kind of finds his joy through piano. And there's a few scenes where he's playing the piano and trying to find his like, trans joy, and were really, really powerful. So both of those, so this is the only one that's currently out. The other 2 you can pre-order. I'm done.
Great choices. I love it. Alicia?
Yeah, I'm also participating in the Trans Rights Readathon, and I'm currently listening on audio to I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver, which is a YA about a non-binary kid who gets kicked out of their house by their parents and then has to kind of start over at a new school and meets just the loveliest, like kindest, just nicest boy, this boy Nathan, who's just like so cheerful and positive. I love like a positive, cheerful, like teenage boy. They're just so charming. And it's just such a great book, and the narrator does a wonderful job. I actually went on a little deep dive today where I was like trying to find out more books like by this narrator, because I was just like trying to figure out the name is MW something. I'm sorry, I did a deep dive, but I didn't pay attention to the name closely. I just looked at all the IMDb credits. Anyway, and then I'm also reading a pre-pub version of a book called Witch of Wild Things by Raquel Vasquez Gilliland, and it's really good. And it's very earthy. There's a lot of nature to it. There's kind of a witchy, like it's these sisters and they have gifts, where they can like talk to the earth, or they can conjure like storms, and it's a really cool book. And not really a love triangle that's overselling that part of it, but there's definitely a couple of love interests that I got very invested in, even though I'm pretty sure I know the one that is the actual love interest. I'm still very invested.
Love it. Okay, so mine is a list of books that I'm planning on reading after I'm out of the hell that is drafting book 2, because I haven't been writing anything or reading anything lately, but I have an ongoing list. So TJ Alexander, Chef's Kiss and Chef's Choice, which I know isn't out yet, but I want to start with Chef's Kiss, and then obviously when Chef's Choice is out, move on to that. And then last year I read a Hades and Persephone retelling. It's by R.M. Virtues. It's called Drag Me Up. And I just love like any sort of like Hades Persephone retelling. And it was amazing. There are 2 more books in that series that I'm hoping to get to after I'm done drafting. And then Cat Sebastian, The Queer Principles of Kit Webb. I own it, but I haven't read it yet. So I'm desperate to get to it because I've heard incredible things about it. Chip Pond's You and I Rewritten. That's another one that's like high on my list.
It's really good.
And Katie Casey's Diamond Ring. I love everything that Katie does. So
Yeah,
I'm
and that one's
desperate to
coming
get
out
to this
in
one.
like
April.
less than a month. Yeah, April 18th.
Yeah, I got to read that one early, and after, I mean, Katie just kind of like sent it to me, and then after I read it, I was like, "Do you want me to write a blurb? Like, I can." Like, I don't know if that's what they were looking for. Like, normally people ask you, like, "Can you write a blurb?" But for this one, I was like, "Let me write a blurb."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Yeah, that'd be great if you want." And then I literally sent KD like a paragraph. Like, my blurbs are always too long, but like,
I love your blurbs.
I was like, just tell your editor to do what they want with this. Because it was like, but I am legit obsessed with them, like in a maybe weird way. But their writing just really hits me.
Same.
So emotional.
It's so tender. It's just
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It gets me right in the heart.
Well, those are all such wonderful choices, and I'm glad that we get to end on such a loving note about all these exciting books. You can shop on our website. You can look through all of our various different pre-order campaigns and future events we have coming up. And if you've enjoyed tonight's event, please check out our events calendar on our website. We have very many exciting events coming up, many of which are either virtual or will have a virtual live stream of the in-store event. And if you're in the DC area, be sure to check out our various book clubs that we have in the store, because we have 14 book clubs, and 2 of them are Really Reading Romance, our romance book club, and Queering the Narrative, our queer book club. So be sure to check out our website. Be sure to check out where you can get all of our copies of Something Wild and Wonderful and Love and Other Disasters and In the Time of Serial Killers, and pre-order With Love from Cold World and You with a View. We have all of these things that we can give you, and just thank you so much to our wonderful authors for such a wonderful and wild evening.
Yeah,
thank
you to everybody who came. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
It was amazing.
Okay, well, we will see you all next time, and thank you to everyone for coming.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.